Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from Insidewire. I'm going to show you the best home lab setup for hosting your servers or to use as a dev lab, or even both. I have set up and configured 5 Intel Nucs with an i7 processor, 32GB of RAM, an NVMe drive and an SSD drive. We will then go over how to install and configure Proxmox on an Intel Nuc. If you've not heard of this before, it's a free hypervisor you can use. We will then be setting up clustering along with high availability for the VMs. We'll then be using a Synology NAS for the shared storage. But be sure to stick around to the end where we pull the plug on some of the Nucs and the Synology NAS to see how long it takes to recover. Before we jump in, remember to hit the like button if you have enjoyed this video and be sure to subscribe. All products used in this video are in the description below. They are linked to my Amazon affiliate, but they don't cost you any more to use. And it helps me bring videos like this to you. The links do work in all countries, so you can use them wherever you are. Anyway, let's get to it. So let's start by booting our Intel Nuc, and we want to go to the BIOS menu and we want to look at disabling secure boot. So for us to be able to boot off USB, if we do try and do this without this disabled, it's just going to tell us to it's just going to fail. So let's click save there. Let's save the configuration. And there we go. So just before we quit, we just want to plug in our USB drive. Once you've plugged that in, you want to click OK and let that reboot. So what it will go off and do now is hopefully it will reboot from the USB drive. So here we go. So we're using Proxmox VE 6.3. So let's go ahead and install that. It is very faint, but it is doing something in the background. Not sure why this is, but I apologize for the incredibly small text. You can see down here there's a button that says I agree, so we'll click on that. We're using our Samsung drive, so we are going to click next on that. We just need to type in the country, which is United Kingdom, and click next. And then password. Again, apologies for the really small text, not quite sure why that is. But I can assure you the rest of it won't be like this. So this is the very easy part of the setup, so let me just get through this. We click next, and then we're going to give it a name. So we'll call it host. So I've actually set up a few more earlier, so we'll go host5.proxmox.local. Doesn't like a NetBIOS name, it needs to be a full FQDN, so if you do have a domain, do use it. For this we will go 10.1.1.25, and then for the gateway is 10.1.1.1, and same for the DNS server. So then let's click next and install, and we go and let that do its thing. So we want this to boot in the virtual environment, so let that go ahead and do that. And you'll be prompted for a username and password when it has fully loaded. Or a username. It is incredibly small. Again, I apologise, but you can see it in the top left-hand corner. So now that that's set up, we can log into the web console. I'm actually going to start by looking at the ones that I've set up so far. So if I go to clients, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have actually already set up the other 4 that we're going to set up on the cluster. So those are the 5 that we're going to be looking at. So let's start by going to one of them. So 10.1.1.21. And you have to go to port 8006 on, make sure you do type in HTTPS, otherwise it won't work. And there we go, we're in. So this is the host, so host number 1. Just quickly going through the quick overview here. You've got the summary of the VM, which gives you some stats. If you've got any notes, if you want a straight shell onto it. The network settings, certificates, DNS, hosts. So if you want to add in any static entries, you can do. Time server and a syslog. Updates, disks, replications, task history and subscriptions. So not going to delve too much into there, and it shows both of the disks that are available on that host. So what we want to do is we want to create a cluster and add all 5 of those nodes into a cluster, present some storage that can be made highly available, and then we want to create a VM. So if we start by going to data center and then go to cluster, and then we're going to create a cluster. So we're just going to call this Proxmox cluster. We're going to use that link and we're going to click create. So that's going to go off and do that. Okay, so that's the name of the cluster. That's what it's got on there. It's got an ID and that's the link. So to add in the next one, I think we just need to go to 10.1.1.2. So let's try 2.2, and then we type in again HTTPS, advanced, and proceed. So it's going to ask you for the username and password. This is going to be the password you set earlier. It's going to tell you you've got no subscriptions, which is fine. And then we'll go to cluster, and then we actually want to join a cluster. So assisted join, paste the encoded cluster information and enter a password. So we're just going to go back to the other one second. So if we go to host 1 and we look at the join information, you can see the fingerprint. So we're just going to copy that. We're going to go here and we're going to paste it. So it's going to tell you what the peer IP is, the peer root's password. So we type that in, and we're going to resolve by this IP's name, and that's the peer. So let's join Proxmox server cluster. Okay, so that is number 2. Join there. So let's go to number 3. If we go 10.1.1.23 colon 8006. Just going to do these simultaneously, I think. So we now have 5 items that are now joined to the cluster. So that one's just coming online. Give it a minute and it will be okay. But you can see now we have 5 nodes that we have in this cluster. Okay, so now we have the cluster set up. We're going to go across to our Synology NAS and we're going to create the file shares we want. So I'm going to be using NFS. So I already have 2 folders created here. Now to make sure NFS works and it's able to connect, you need to go to the NFS permissions and click create, and you can type in the IP of the host. Now because I have 5 hosts, I'm just gonna open up for the whole subnet for now, just for the ease of setup at the moment. But you can do it via individual IP. You can create a smaller subnet. It's entirely up to you, however you want to do it. So there are 2 ISOs. So we have the ISO folder and the VM folder, and that's all you need to do on the Synology NAS. So if we go across to host 1, you'll see that if we go to storage, we can add, there's an option for NFS. Now we can call this whatever we want. We're going to call this Syn VMs. We type in the IP, the cluster IP of the Synology NAS, and then we choose the VM folder. The contents is going to be disk image, but if you want anything else, you can select these, and we're going to go with NFS 4.1. We're going to do the same for the VMs. We're going to do the same for the ISOs. So we'll just type in Syn ISOs 10.1.1.17, and again it should give us the drop down here once it connects to it. it should give us the ISO drop down. So we're going to change this one from disk image to ISO. Click add. We have our two storage locations from the Synology NAS set up. So you can see on the left hand side that they are presented themselves to all the hosts. If you had only allocated the IP or the permission IP for host 1, you would have a red X against all of them, so just keep an eye on that. If you do get a red X, it's probably because you haven't allocated the IP to the NFS permissions. So the next thing for us to do is to upload some ISOs, so we click upload. We're going to quickly upload a couple of ISOs, so let's upload this, click open and upload. Okay, and I guess I don't think I will use another one, but I will just upload one more since OS 7, click open and upload that one. Okay, so we have our two ISOs uploaded, so we can have a look. Just wait for that to load. But you can see across all the hosts that the ISOs are available. So let's go ahead and start by creating our first VM. So let's go create VM. We'll create this on host 5, for example, VM 100. Let's call it VM 1. Start at boot. Click next. So we want to look for our ISO folder, which is there, and then we want to install Ubuntu, and we click next. No graphics cards. Hard disk, we'll just keep it as it is. We don't need to change any of that. Same with the CPU for the time being. I'm just going to up the RAM. Actually, maybe I'll give the 2 cores, 2 sockets. So we'll click memory, 4096. Network, again, we keep as it is. We click next and we click finish. So that's one VM created, and you can see that's starting to get itself created on host 5. So repeat the process. Okay, so we've created them. We want to start all 3 VMs. Let's click start, and let's click start. So once we've started, we can go to the console. One thing I think is quite useful with Proxmox is it has the console built in, so you can actually see what's going on. So it's just doing some checks at the moment. Now, the aim of setting up at least a couple of VMs is to make sure that we can test the HA failover. So what I'm actually going to do post these setups, grab the IPs, I'm going to configure HA, and then we're actually going to pull the network cable off one of the hosts just to see how long it takes for the VM to come back online. And then also once we've done that, we're probably going to go ahead and do the same with the Synology NAS as well, because I have an active passive pair. I want to pull the network cables from the active one and see what happens and how long it takes to recover. Back to the setup here, we want to install UK English, continue. We'll go with minimal installation for now because this is just for demo purposes. Yeah, continue. Yeah, continue. Let's just go here, pick a password. Right, so that's one kicked off. So I'm just going to do the same with the others. So once you've rebooted after the installation, it's going to tell you to remove the installation media. Best thing to do is to click on the VM, go to hardware, go to drives and click edit, and then do not use any media and click OK. Go back to the console and press enter, and then that will boot. On this one, so we know 10.1.1.72, so I'm just going to open up terminal on my machine locally. So let's bring this across, make this a bit bigger. So we go ping 10.1.1.11. Sorry, 10.1.1.72. And we can see that's responding, right? So we're happy that that is doing this. So next thing we want to do is set up HA, and that is you click on the data center at the top and you click HA and you click to add the resources. So you want to select all 3 VMs, yeah, click add, and VM2, click add, and VM3, click add. So now all 3 of these are being watched. If a host does die down, it will come back up on another host, I would hope. So we're about to test that now. I haven't tested this yet, so this is a live test. Not sure that's the best idea, but we will give it a go. So what I'm actually going to quickly pop off and do is I'm going to pull the plug on host 5, and then we will see this one die out pretty quickly. So, and then the aim is for it to come back up on another server. So let's hope that it does that. So let's just give that a go. Okay, so I have pulled the plug on host 5, which you can see, and if I scroll across, we've lost the pings now as well. So let's just give this a moment and see how long it takes for it to come back on another host. That has come back online on host 2. We can see here. However, I have a feeling because I didn't give it a static IP address, it's gonna have picked up another address. Nope, we're still good there. So if I check my ping that's running, yeah, we're getting a response from it. So it took a couple of minutes, I would say, for it to go down, come across, and come to a new host. So how many pings we're looking at? 82 to 222. So that's about 140 pings. Yeah, so we know that's come back online. So I'm gonna bring that host back up now. So just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so yeah, just plug that one back in, and now you can see host 5 is back online. So I think the next thing I want to see is how this copes with me pulling the plug on one of the Synology NAS boxes. So I'm going to actually run 2 pings. I'm going to run one to the cluster IP, and I'm going to run another one to one of the VMs, probably the same one, 10.1.1.72. So let me just set those up. So this one's still running, so that's fine. So if I go ping 10.1.1.17, I want to see what happens when we lose a NAS. Okay, so let me just go and pull the plug on those. Okay, so I just pulled the network connection from .17, so it looks like it's lost, but it's not lost any pings to the VM itself. So I would expect 1.7 to come back online. There you go. So it's come back online because the other one has taken over. So that one's fairly quick. That one was about 30 pings. So that was probably less than 15-20 seconds, and that came back online, which is really good. So I think I'm pushing it a little bit here, but I want to do one more test, and I want to pull the plug on a host and the cluster at the same time. So I'll keep both pings running on here for now, and if we just go across, let's just have a look at the Synology NAS to see what that's doing. If we go to here, you can see this one's come offline, so it's no longer there. So we'll go and plug that back in at the same time. Both servers assume the role of the active and inconsistent data. Please select one of the following. So reserve both servers in the HA. So you've committed the latest data on one of the servers. The server can act as the new active HA, which will continue to run without being affected. That's fine. Let's just sync the differences. I believe we unplugged NAS 2, so NAS 1 was the correct one, and let that go across and sync it up. So There you go, just a little something there. If you ever lose your NAS, this will happen probably. So what's happened is we took down NAS 2, that came offline. NAS 1 was constantly writing. NAS 2's come online saying, hold on, I'm the active, so they've both assumed the role of the active server, and they've got conflicting data. So we're trying to basically migrate the data from NAS 1, because that was the latest, across to NAS 2. So once that happens, the cluster should be happy again. Okay, so that issue has now been resolved. We have all 3 VMs on host 3. We have our Synology NAS healthy, so NAS 1 is assuming the active role, which is fine. So what I'm going to quickly do now is go and pull the plug on both of these, and let's see what happens. So right, so we've pulled the plug on both of them now, so let's see how long this takes to recover. So the NAS has already recovered itself, that has come back online. So let's just see how much longer it takes for the VM to come back. And there we go, that's back. So that again probably took a couple of minutes to recover, but both VMs, the VM is back up and running, and the cluster is back and healthy. So yeah, there we go. So I think in terms of resiliency, a couple of minutes downtime and then you'll be back up and running again. And just before we check, let's just see where those VMs went to. So they spread themselves out. So VM1 went to host 1, VM2 went to host 2, and VM3 went to host 4. So they don't just all migrate to one host, sorry, they spread themselves out. I hope you found this video useful, and if you want to see more like this, let me know in the comments below. If you want to be notified when I release more videos, hit the subscribe button with the notification bell. Once again, all products used in the video are in the description below. Please do check them out and help my channel by using the links provided. Until next time, this is Insidewire, and I'll see you in the next one.